Hey there! Welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Robert Winters.
I'm Judy Nathans.
And today's May Day. May Day! May Day!
Yes, that's right. It's the first. I keep thinking it's the second, but it's the first, right?
May 1st, 2018.
That's right. May Day, which apparently did originate here and not in Russia. I would half listen to something, but whatever.
So we're supposed to be celebrating labor relations and things like that?
Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's a nice segue. Anyway, never mind.
Actually, maybe that's appropriate that I saw a press release today from Harvard University. They put out from maybe the provost's office or something about how they're going to be entering into good faith negotiation with the newly approved union of graduate students.
That's right.
Is it just graduate students? I'm not even sure.
I think it's just graduate students, but it's causing what's the word? Ripple across the universe, across the universities across the country, because they are going to be.
If
I don't
Harvard
know if other
do it,
countries
now
have
others
done
should
it.
do it.
Well, I think there may be in other universities done it. But
I mean, having been a graduate student in mathematics, and not at Harvard, but at MIT, I'm not so sure I would have actually approved of it, because I don't really want to necessarily be seen as an employee, unless they're abusing me by making me do too much work.
But you're paid. Most graduate students are paid.
Yeah,
right?
but the relationship is, if you're getting a teaching assistantship, or whatever, it's sort of based on, your need or whatever. It's not like you just apply for the job and then argue you should pay me this, or argue for salaries. It is a problem that some universities underpay some of the staff. I'll speak here as, even though when I taught out at Brandeis University, I was an adjunct faculty there.
Yeah.
And there, that's when I bought the book, We'll Teach for Food.
Oh, wow.
Because if you were, and I just wanted to get the health benefits at the time, but...
which I'm sure what motivates
a lot of people there. But the thing is, they paid you by the course, and honestly, you were paid a real pittance. And I remember the department chair saying to me, says, we call ourselves a social justice school, yet we don't pay our people teaching our college level classes a fair wage.
Right.
I hope they've addressed that. So it's not just the graduate students. I think there's something a little bit flawed in the way.
Right, but they got together and they're trying to do something, so you can't blame them for that.
Yeah, there's another point too, I think, about the, this wasn't, by the way, wasn't what we were planning on talking. Did we have a plan?
We do, it's only a couple minutes in, so we'll get to it.
Yeah, but the thing is that, when you're working as a graduate student, the presumption is you're not going to turn it into a career. In fact, if you do turn it into a career, something's wrong.
Yeah, I know, but you're usually doing that work in an area you're going to turn into a career, so what's the difference?
In a way, it's sort of like job training for your future.
It's like an internship that you're getting paid for.
Yeah, I mean...
And you can be abused, so maybe you need
and some places maybe do that, or maybe some individual departments do it too. Yeah. In fact, actually, one of the biggest problems with being a graduate student often is that if they put too much work on you, instead of finishing in some requisite number of like 4 years or whatever the nominal amount is, you end up taking longer because they just keep piling it on, and you're basically cheap labor. So
or you can't get a job, and maybe it's good to just stay.
It might be good to just hang for a while.
Or you didn't complete your thesis. I think a lot of
that's
people.
The thing is, a lot of people will say I earned my ABD.
What's an ABD?
All but dissertation.
Okay.
Right. Well, anyway, I got the dissertation, so.
All right.
Yeah, but it's true. It can be a tough road to hoe when you're a graduate
I just think
student.
it's a wave of the future, because I think as unions, go away in some areas, are going to be coming up more.
It is there is something kind of deliciously ironic about the United Auto Workers representing Harvard graduate students.
Oh, is that who's representing?
Yeah, I mean, so the United Auto Workers at some elite Ivy League college, it's like you have
Gone are those days, back when the protest days, when you had truckers and stuff like. You get it ready. Those hippies who were all.
There was actually a message that was sent today, made very clear that that the Harvard administration has no intention of negotiating with or interacting with entities that have nothing to do with the academic mission.
So why did they do that?
They will deal with the unionized graduate students within the university.
Right.
But if some union thug comes from Detroit with the United Auto Workers and says, my name's
why would the graduate students even want that? You think that would sully their
it's a matter of how you sell something,
I guess
right?
so.
A lot of this stuff, how people vote is often influenced. I guess this is would bring us to the
Yeah.
issue of campaign finance reform
Yes.
too. But
Yeah.
you know,
right.
it's
Yeah.
sort of how do you message things, and
Mm.
you know, this was probably messaged as sort of a social justice thing, and social justice is sort of a popular
But
concept
there
these
is the
days.
Harvard Union clerical type of
Harvard
workers,
Union
so
clerical
are they involved?
technical.
Are they
No,
supporting it?
no,
No?
I don't know if they they probably would be supportive of it, but
I mean,
they're
that's
not
a union that could
right.
help
But they're
out.
completely unrelated to this particular effort. So
Interesting.
yeah, it's been
It'll
interesting.
be interesting to follow.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. So what else is
So,
happening around
all right,
town?
so that segued into, well, we're talking about money and we're talking about representation, and I think that covers everything we're going to talk about. No,
So long.
it kind of came out at the
See you
city
next week
council.
on Cambridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were some. Should we talk about that? The
Well, we could talk a little bit
comments
about. You want to talk? We could talk a little bit more on budget related stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe that's pretty topical in that today was the first.
Oh right, and you went to it.
I went to it for a while. I actually
You gave
did.
public comment, and you tell us what you gave public comment.
Sure. Let's say first that there's the hearing this week, and then I believe it's next Tuesday, 9 a.m. as
Different
well.
departments, right?
Different departments. So they did approximately half of the city
So
departments.
today was at city council and executive, or?
Yeah. So today
'Cause
I've
that's
got the list
one.
around here somewhere, but the thing is,
Yeah.
so they had a bunch of about approximately half of the departments, and I spoke on some of them. Actually, I didn't speak so much on specific department budgets so much as sort of on the sort of the general gist of things.
And
Well, one of the points that I was going to make here, I think I've got it marked down somewhere, but I can just
you can
remember it.
remember it.
Was that when I did a little bit of a research project.
You did. Is that what was on your?
Yeah,
on
we
your
have from
list? Yeah.
we have them on the website here. But
Yeah.
there was I was looking through not only the budgets for department by department. I looked at them last week when the budget book was available. And then I looked also at the number of positions, the positions list. And if you
For
look at
each
that,
department and whether they've changed.
and how that has actually changed over the years, and it's
Yeah.
actually so I think I had a bunch of things written down last week we could have spoken about, but I think we did say a few things on the mayor's office budget,
Right.
which honestly was primarily because it just happens to be up high on the list of
Right.
when
And
you,
we got
when
a
you
little
just count
pushback
down.
on that, but
A little
just,
pushback, but
you know.
so let me just say a little bit on that,
Okay.
right, which is that if you actually just look at the dollar amount, department by department by department over the many years, right, then that tells one story. When you look at the position lists, meaning how many positions each department has, and these are really full-time benefits eligible, presumably
Right.
people, right? It tells a different story. So what I did, because I'm a civic nerd,
Right.
and I have every year I get the budget book,
Yeah.
not just the online PDF, but before PDFs, I would just get the book, and the book would be like that thick, and I could put about 5 or 6 to a milk crate, and I've got a stack of milk crate with old budget books. So when there was some questions raised about this last week, I went and pulled them out and just started running
And
through
they
the budgets.
go back to.
I have budget books going back to 1992.
Okay, so that's what this is.
And
right?
some of the earlier ones actually had just so it was a little bit of a look back to 1981, showing the total number of positions, but not
Right, I see
breaking
that.
it out,
Yeah.
you know,
We can show
position
that
by
after.
position.
Yeah.
I'll just sort of do. We'll just come up.
Well,
do a
this is
flicker.
1981. You want to
Yeah.
just
So
okay.
yeah. So this was just sort of do. Actually, just click forward one here to the next page here, right?
So this is 92.
Yeah. So just so we're a
Let's see if I
little
can
clear
zoom
what
in
we're
a little
doing here.
more
So
here.
what I did was I just entered these, a couple days ago. Just having, run through all the various budget books over the years, just showing the number of listed positions department by department over the many years.
Right.
It was a little bit like a little romp through history, because if you're looking back into from the 80s or early 90s,
went up there.
you actually see when the rent control department disappears.
Oh, right.
I never realized how many employees were actually
so
in the
that
rent
was
control
back
department.
up here.
Actually,
Rent control. Oh.
no,
it's
actually,
gone by 80.
no, I just didn't have them
Oh,
delineated, so
I
it's still
see.
on that second page. But if you
Oh, it
scroll down
is?
just a little bit,
Okay.
what you'll see there a little further down under community maintenance, under
Oh,
rent
okay.
control,
There you go.
it
Oh, my
actually
goodness.
peaked at 27 full-time
In 92.
employees.
Wow.
I don't honestly, I just don't remember
When was
that
it?
it was that
When
large.
was it voted out?
It was a 1994 election, and then
94.
and then there was a little bit of lingering where they had to
Sure.
kind of close up the books.
Wow.
So
Look at
it
that.
went from
25
27
positions.
to 25, and then down to 0, and then never more.
Huh.
All right. But if you look department by department, we got a
Yeah.
little bit of pushback from the, on some things we said last week. But
Right.
if you, for example, look at the mayor's office back going again through the 1990s, what you'll see is that they held steady at four positions. This does not include the mayor, by the way, right? This is just
Does not include the mayor. This is extra
Right.
positions.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were some changes
It did
where
go up to 5 though in 01.
yeah, so it was 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and then it went 5 and 5, 5, 5, and only in the last, I think it was just 2 years ago.
So
It
is that
jumped-
down here? Let me see.
Yeah, so if you go to the last page there,
Yeah.
what it does is that it jumps up, going after being 5 for a good while, it goes to
So when-
6.
Who was mayor in 2000?
I think it was when Denise
Denise?
Simmons was,
Yeah.
and then, or actually she was elected mayor, I guess that year, or
Okay.
the beginning of that year. And then,
Must have been something.
sometimes you have somebody there for the short term, and then it goes away, it drops
Where
down
they left.
to 4.
Maybe they left and they didn't fill it.
And rather than go back up to 5, it went up to 6. So, all right, now maybe there's good reasons for that, but that was a little bit of the controversy. It was
Okay.
just sort of
Right.
like about that. So, again, my personal opinion is that it's not necessarily a wise idea to be packing too many things into these executive positions.
Yeah.
Or sort of pseudo-executive departments. The city manager's office, by the way, and I'm not trying to be critical, but it's actually interesting. It tells a bit of a story as long as you know how to read it.
Yeah.
If you look at the city manager's office over the many years, the executive department, if you go back far enough in the executive department, what you find is the total number of full-time people in the city manager's office was like 6. Including the manager, deputy city manager, a few others like that. And then around 1994, it jumps up to 11. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I do remember that for a time they were moving things like the fellow John Kessler had written this report on creating a Cambridge environmental program.
Okay.
There was a lot of concern about the parking freeze and how to deal with that. So they actually brought somebody over from Conservation Commission, Liz Epstein, planted her in the manager's office to sort of run this sort of beginnings of this Cambridge environmental program. So sometimes what happens is like the manager's office is a little bit like a little birthing chamber where you grow something.
Start and then it moves to another. It becomes its own entity.
I would say the manager wants to hold it close.
I see.
So they hold it there.
Yeah.
They figure out what's going on, and then they spawn it, and it goes to a department. So, for example, the Cambridge Environmental Program, which I think might have been the reason why the manager's office jumped
Well, it went
that
from
year.
11 to 18.
Yeah, then it goes up to 18.
For 2
I
years,
can't. I have
95,
no idea.
96.
I actually have to go dig into the books to figure
and then
that.
all the way down to 7.
Yeah. So you have to kind of there is a story in there, and you have to read the narratives to understand what it is.
Nothing is straight and forward. It could be, whatever.
Right, but basically, when you see some sort of fluctuation in the manager's office, it usually means because there's either a crisis or they're sort of in the middle of taking care of something.
Or they had to hire something temporarily.
Yeah, I mean, that also coincided with the end of rent control, so it may well have been that they were managing
they
the
add all those
transition.
extra positions. Maybe, actually, I think I know of someone that moved from, they probably got other positions within the government.
Right, but not necessarily within the manager's office.
No.
Yeah.
But,
so anyway, so that's one that would fluctuate. So, I look at this here, and if I was just sort of like a biologist, I would look at this and I would say, well, okay, so the city manager's office, when it would jump up to 18 for a few years and then drop to 7, that means some new piece was born in another department. I think that's probably.
Or another department was born.
I think that's when they probably created the Office of Environmental and Transportation.
But where would that be
Planning.
on this list?
It moved into the Community Development Department.
Oh, so wouldn't community development?
So that
what's
probably
that
would have
community maintenance.
Yeah, so that would have jumped up then. Now I'm just guessing a bit on this, so I'm not 100% sure.
It's only 4 position change in '96, so I don't.
Yeah, so but that's one of the things that you tend to see is that sometimes an idea gets fleshed out in the manager's office and then moves elsewhere.
Well, they definitely got more in community development as these things rolled along. They increased their.
Yeah, so the manager's office was 7, jumped up a little bit more, and then dropped back down to 8. Right now, it's sort of curiously they've been pumping it up. to now, it was like 9,999 straight across for like 10 straight years.
Yeah.
And then it was 11, 11, 11, 12, and now 14. So I would look at that and I'd say, well, maybe next year you'll see something spawn out of the manager's office, which will get then located within one of the other
Well,
departments.
now it's interesting. Community development, if you look over the last 10 years, has gained probably almost 20 positions.
It's
but
actually,
that makes sense
you know,
in a way.
I think that there's still a little bit of explanation is warranted. And if the city councilors, when they're having the budget hearings next week on that, that would actually be.
Community development. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I would like my city councilors to ask questions like, Mr. Manager, Mr. and Mrs. Department Head, could you tell me why it is that, how is it that, what is the reasoning behind the fact that certain departments have grown exponentially while others have stayed flat?
But, you know, in their defense, community development, they have, in fact, I think, isn't Nadine maybe said, you know, then you have to hire more people because they kept throwing so many things at them to answer.
And that may be the answer.
And that's the reason. They need more staff to come up with all of these
But if you're having a budget hearing, I think that's exactly the kind of question that Craig Kelly or somebody like that who pays attention to these things, or Alana Mallon could ask, is say, well, hey, tell us what's the idea here, what's going on. You know?
What did you ask? Because that relates to.
Well, tomorrow, you know.
Yesterday was City Council Executive.
This morning was the city budget. You know, the first half of the city departments. You know, school department is handled somewhat separately. So I asked a few specific things. One of which was, you know, I was sort of pointing out how some departments have grown in budget. By the way, I should say one other thing on the mayor's office budget, in terms of relative to the growth in the actual budget over the years. The mayor's office actually has not grown nearly as fast as some of the other departments.
Yeah, somebody was
there may be more
98%,
positions, but the budget is actually quite tame in comparison to some other departments. So, you know, so that's really good. I did notice I was kind of like drifting back in time. There was a time when the mayor's office budget just blew up. And that was because they were putting all the money for funding the mayor's summer youth employment program was all being routed directly through that. And I knew the chief of staff at the time was a friend of mine, and he basically proposed that they do the right thing, which was say, look, the mayor's office, maybe this is a good thing to do this for the intake of the individuals. We can still call it the mayor's summer youth employment program. But the actual operation and follow-up should be rolled into and joined with the Office of Workforce Development and Community Development Departments. So a big chunk of change that was in the mayor's office budget in subsequent years got transferred where it belonged, honestly. You know, so you see some things, if you know the narrative of it all, you say, hey, that's a pretty good idea. You know? And so sometimes, you know, there's a very good story to be told in there. So, you know,
so again, back to you mentioned thing about this positions on city council was only listed as 2.
Yeah. So that was another thing. So after I was just mentioned, I was sort of giving congratulations. Like the law department has barely risen at all, which to me that's kind of amazing. Everything is litigious and whatever. You know, yet the law department
send it to the solicitor.
Really kept a nice steady line on things. But you know, one of the things that I kind of said to Louis while I was saying this, Louis DePasquale, the city manager, I don't want to like create more work for people here, but if you look at the city council budget and it says you know total number of positions 2. Look, obviously that's not true. There are 2 people who work out of the city council office. There are 9 city councilors. 9
legislative aides.
Well, I guess, that's right. That's right. And none of that is reflected in the number of positions shown. It is, of course, reflected in the budget. So if you look at the total budget for the city council, which has grown above average compared to other city departments, you know, then you know the budget tells one story, but the position list absolutely is misleading. Okay. So now I guess there's sort of a bit of a little bit of a difficulty here. If you're the manager who is hired by the council, and then you're listing their jobs as though they were your employees.
Well, you know what? I think it's because all of these are employees, and the councilors are employees, but they're elected, and it's a real difference.
I know, but the thing is, if this is put in a budget book,
Yeah.
And this is a
it's
budgetary matter.
It's under government. It's true. Yeah.
I mean, if I had my
Yeah.
druthers, whatever druthers are,
yeah.
I would just formally include.
Plus the mayor's listed.
I would put the mayor's office, the mayor's salary under the mayor's budget.
You're right.
And I would put the city councilor's salary under the city council's budget.
No, that's a good point.
And
because the mayor is listed,
right.
and he is a city councilor.
Right. Now they do have city council aides, and I think they all have them now, right? So in addition to the mayor, he has his own staff.
It's a nice, cushy position.
It's a cushy position, and
with benefits.
With benefits.
Gets over what most first-time teachers get.
Right. So what I suggested, just again, I don't know how many people read these things, so how important is it? I don't know, but just for the sake of intellectual honesty, I think it wouldn't be bad if they, in addition to just showing the number of full-time benefits people, they also just put what we in the academic world would always say, how many full-time equivalents does the department get, right? Based on a course enrollments, right?
But maybe it's because you're not supposed to, they can't really say city councilors are full-time or part-time employees, because it depends, isn't the role, I mean, I've looked at other cities and they really don't specify whether they're part, because in a sense, most of them have had day jobs, and you consider it a part-time position. But their salary indicates it's not a part-time position. I'm sorry, that's what I think.
That's what I think too. Honestly,
with the benefits, it's close to what.
It's one of the everlasting dishonesties. Honestly, is that a city council position in a planning form of government, right, where it's an at-large position, primarily driven by policy. You're not a district councilor who's in charge of making sure so-and-so's streets get paved.
Right. It's
fundamentally a policy position that way. It was never meant to be a full-time job, nor is it a full-time job. But if you can make anything a full-time job.
I
could make my tending my garden a full-time job, but
I think some people do, because they do devote, that is their job, and because they've done whatever they've done in their life, and they have this time, and they do a lot. They go to a lot of meetings, and it is a full-time job, but it isn't supposed to be a full-time job, and I just. I get concerned about that.
When you look at other cities, I think they're a little more upfront and honest about it. And when they have city councilors, aldermen, whatever, most of them do have other jobs. They also are paid.
Los Angeles, I was looking, they get 150. They get a lot of money. Los Angeles is what?
I'd have to look and see what they're responsible for.
But I wouldn't compare Los Angeles. I was looking at Berkeley, California, because I lived there once, and it's very comparable. As a university. A lot of citizen participation. What else? They have a city manager, but they have an elected mayor who serves for 4 years.
Right.
And they have districts.
Yeah.
They might have one at large. So, but their salaries are probably half.
Right. And a lot of the cities in our surrounding area here, I don't know what the salary for a Somerville alderman is, but
it's less than an aide.
Less than a city council aide in Cambridge.
According to something I read. And
right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you can complain to Robert on his website, but that's what I read, so I think that's something's wrong with that picture.
On more than a few occasions, when challenged on the question about is a city council position a full-time position or a part-time position, I would call it a hefty part-time position. But people say the kind of canned answer is, why, it's more than a full-time job.
Well, then why are they doing other jobs? It seems like it's being paid as a full-time job. Granted, if you were the only breadwinner in a family, yes, to live in Cambridge, that probably would not be enough. We know that. However, that's not the case with a lot of people.
I haven't made too many friends with this position, but I will say that back when
you haven't made too many friends.
When they created the council aide positions, which were originally called research assistants.
That's true.
Back in, it's probably 15 something years ago now. He didn't have an aide for the longest time. And to his undying credit, when he did decide to have an aide,
he used the hell out of them.
He did it like a job search to find somebody who was a really
competent
qualified
and really,
researcher.
Exactly. It turns out these reports that are amazing.
By the way, this is not meant to be critical of the individuals. I mean, these are all wonderful people. I want to be really, really clear about it.
Well, I don't know them all. I wouldn't say they're all wonderful.
Well, I don't know.
You're being very generous.
But I know the ones who I know, they're
Yeah.
nice people. But
Yeah.
you know, the
Public
thing is
service.
that there is something kind of little sort of delectable about the way they benefit themselves. So, you
It
know-
becomes little fiefdoms, and I think that they should have maybe 3 aides that work for all of the counselors and share research.
I would
and come
tie
up
them
with
to the
things.
individual council committees, which is really where the work of the
Okay,
committee should
that,
be done.
that's one way to
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know, the thing is, it's not just that the counselors have sort of, you know, their money. I mean, benefits included. It's like we're up to like the 100,000 range.
Yeah.
Plus the aides, which were originally supposed
And
to
they
be
get
very
benefits,
part-time.
that's
Now
close
they're
to like,
benefits
that's
and
close to 60.
pretty well
Yeah,
paid.
it's pretty well.
Right. But you know, little things too. You know,
Mhm.
like I mean, I think there was a question at the end of this last council term about,
Yeah.
well, what's going to happen to those computers that you got from as being a counselor? Do you get to walk away with them?
Right, yeah.
But other little things.
Wait, they get laptops?
Oh yeah, they get that too. But here's the other thing too: is that once upon a time on you know Dottie Doe Way, which is the alley behind City Hall, there were parking spaces.
Oh, you mentioned.
And you know, this is our good climate change activist city council who's anti-automobile and whatever.
Oh,
those-
stop.
Those spaces used to be available for all City Hall employees, and only on
really?
Monday night were they reserved for city council
And now
business.
they're just for city
And then at
councilors?
some point along the road, the
Oh, I
signs
know that.
went up and said city council parking only.
Anytime?
Yeah, now people will borrow them a little bit here and there, but the thing is that yeah, so they basically got their
And you
reserve.
think there's a movement to try to get offices now?
Oh yeah, and that's another thing is that
Because
now
they're renting
they
space
say
where
we
work
have
or
no
something?
place to have so we need to have more and more and more. So as part of the municipal facilities plan, which is part of the capital budget for this year,
Oh, that's in the works?
it's will probably create office space either in City Hall or they'll move some other people
What's
across
happening to
the
the
Lombardi
building
building,
they took over from, well, we can talk,
the Lombardi
Cambridge.
building and
No, the Cambridge Business
the
Association.
old
Yeah.
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber, yeah.
They're working on it. So.
All right, we'll
Back-
see you in next
back in a
segment,
couple.
continue.